Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Dee again, and welcome to the Interstate with Dee. Today is Saturday, November 23rd, 2024. Welcome back to our trip on the Interstate. What we do here is present news from the state level that will end up having national importance later, or news that made it into the national news cycle but was overshadowed. Then we go over some questions from y'all. On this date in 2004, World of Warcraft was released. That's right, Warcraft is 20 years old. Feel old? For those who don't know, World of Warcraft is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game that kind of set the standard. According to reports, even 20 years later, 7 million people still subscribe to the service. Okay, and on to the news. California's Proposition 65, which created regulations on chemicals the state deems toxic, is a success according to new research. Levels of designated chemicals declined in people studied. The reduction shown in the study applied to several forever chemicals as well. Colorado legislators are now concerned that Trump will force Space Command to move to Alabama. Georgia's Attorney General has announced his candidacy for governor in 2026. He's the first candidate from a major party to announce. Brian Kemp is currently term limited. Elsewhere in Georgia, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene got a new gig working on a committee that would help with Elon Musk's cost-cutting measures. New York Representative AOC supported the new assignment in the most insulting way possible, saying, quote, "This is good, actually. She barely shows up and doesn't do the reading. To borrow a phrase I saw elsewhere, it's like giving someone an unplugged controller." I'm putting this under Idaho because it's about potatoes, but it really affects people everywhere. Major potato producers are being accused of running a, quote, potato cartel and engaging in price fixing. One of the allegations says, quote, "Armed with the same access to each other's data on pricing and other sensitive information, as well as with a direct line of communication to each other, the potato cartel moves prices skyward in lockstep, harming all purchasers of potatoes in the process." Most of the potato companies involved have issued strong denials. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is signaling he will break with Trump over using the military for deportation efforts. Louisiana's law requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in classrooms remains blocked after the Fifth Circuit Court rejected the state's appeal. In New York, prosecutors appear to be backing a move to delay Trump's sentencing until after he leaves the White House. The Minnesota Equestrian Center caught fire on Thursday. No humans were harmed, but it appears that at least 2 horses were lost. In Missouri, Republican officials who said they would respect the will of voters seem to have changed their mind and are signaling that they'll try to undermine voters when it comes to overturning the state's restrictive abortion ban. In North Carolina, Republican legislators who lost their supermajority in the recent election are trying to strip the governor's office of some of its powers. It looks like the biggest change would be stripping the governor's office of its ability to make some appointments. The bill is likely to be vetoed, and even though Republicans still currently have their supermajority, some Republicans seem opposed to the plan. That means they may not have the votes to override a veto. In Ohio, a high school principal has found himself in hot water for the apparently unforgivable offense of helping a student who was experiencing homelessness. The principal is alleged to have allowed the student to attend classes even though the student was not currently enrolled. Officials seem concerned about liability issues. The Pennsylvania Senate race is finally over, and Bob Casey has conceded to Dave McCormick. In Tennessee, Republican officials are trying to push through a school voucher program that critics say will lead to more discrimination and more inequality. Washington State is still recovering from a bomb cyclone weather event that left hundreds of thousands without power. In Wisconsin, a person reportedly faked their own death while kayaking. Officials say the person is alive in Europe. A Wyoming judge struck down the state's abortion laws, saying, quote, "The court concludes that the abortion statutes suspend a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions during the entire term of a pregnancy and are not reasonable or necessary to protect the health and general welfare of the people." And here's your weird state fact for this week. Annapolis, Maryland was briefly the U.S. capital. I found that out researching for the This Day in History segment, but there's a lot of conflicting dates. It might have become the capital on today's date back in 1783, but it seems like most sources say it happened on November 26th. Either way, for about 9 months, the U.S. Congress met in the State House in Annapolis. In addition to Washington, D.C. and Annapolis, Maryland, the U.S. had other temporary capitals, including Philadelphia, Baltimore, Lancaster, York, Princeton, Trenton, and New York City. Okay, so moving on to the question and answer portion of the show. Question number 1. Is Virginia part of the South? Yes, don't be silly. Virginia is Southern, but they're the good accent Southern, like people from Charleston. If you don't get that, just know that most people are afraid of the wrong Southern accent. Question number 2. How can people be excited about Kentucky changing over to battery production? It's bad for the environment. As opposed to coal? Even when you factor in the pollution that occurs during production, greener energy is greener than the alternative. Question number 3. This is really a bunch of questions from different people. They're asking why this segment or Research Road isn't showing up in their feeds. We don't actually know, but it might help to turn on the notifications for this channel. Okay, that looks like it. We'll see you next week for another trip. Y'all have a good day.